asking for more transparency and asking about a plan, challenged them to come up with a plan of their own. The concern of the group had escalated mostly because we were given a two-sided letter-sized page entitled Preliminary Budget and told that that was the plan of the hospital. So it just didn't satisfy people. So he asked us to come up with our own plan and bring it to the hospital board. And he said that more than once, so we took that to heart. I think it's a good idea anyway. So, and that's why the group was formed in the first place. So far this group consists of members of the public, about 5 members of the public, and at least 2 members from every EMS group except this one. I'm the only representative from this group. But I'm hoping, yeah.
You're not representing ESD3.
No, I'm not no, and I've made that very clear at each meeting. I'm not representing the board. I'm not representing ESD3. And none of us are representing our boards. ESD2 has made that clear also, and they have 2 or 3 people there. They're like we are. Until this board votes, we don't have an official board position. What we are trying to do, and I'll tell you what my function there, and I'm going to need to pull from some of you sometime if you will cooperate, if you can, is that I'll skip a little bit down to what we have planned to do with this. Right now we're just a second here. Right now we are coming together and we're discussing strategic sourcing. Our thoughts at this point, and I'm not speaking for the group either, by the way, the strategic planning group. I'm just giving you an overview of what I see right now. We've had 2 meetings. So far, we would all remain just as we are, but we wanted to save money by strategic sourcing of supplies and equipment. And wake up over there. Supplies and equipment and training. We would all use the same trainer. We're talking about using the same medical director, but we're not to that point yet. We have committees already. We have 3 committees. One is looking at protocol to see what common. Well, we're finding that we have pretty common ground there on the protocols. So that's where we are, and that's why I would need some input here because I don't have all that information. There's no way I can answer some of those questions or be on those committees. And the reason I think this group is exceptionally important is that, not forming this group was really not an option. The hospital board, Larry Richardson said, and other members of the board nodded, that if the rollback tax is approved, if they have to go back, they will bow out of this. They would just take their toys and go home. He didn't say it like that, but they would bow out of this project. He said that, and other members of the board shook their heads that they would. Later in the meeting, I'm not clear what the outcome of that was, but I think that if by not forming this group and if by not looking at this from the perspective of the EMS groups and ESD groups, which is something the hospital I think was going to do in the first place, but changed their minds for some reason. They're not getting any input from the people that have been doing this for years in Wilson County. But I think we wouldn't be serving our taxpayers if we just sit back and wait to see if the rollback tax goes and if the hospital stays in this or not. This is a critical group to this community, and I think the taxpayers would expect this. So we're going full force ahead. If nothing comes of it, if the hospital does this, at least maybe they'll want to hear what's come of some of our meetings. It would make a lot of sense if the hospital does wind up doing this. These meetings are not for nothing. They're good things are going to come of them no matter what, and the cooperation of the groups. So I wanted to announce that, and let's see. So Connolly's challenge is a positive step, as I was saying, and we're doing what is a logical and wise move in this endeavor for Connolly, maybe, or for an actual. We may have to go forward with it if Connolly pulls out. This group has, I don't know, the collective experience right here in Wilson County. So what their input and it's valuable. What they're doing, what we're doing is valuable. I'm repeating myself, but In fact, during the first introduction to, when our first meeting where Connolly brought us on August 9th, brought the EMS people and some members of the community, of the officials from the community together, I asked Mr. Burnside during that meeting whether Connolly was going to be forming a group of, an advisory group made up of the EMS group and the members of the community that have some expertise in this area, and he just said no. Very quickly, he just said no. And I don't know why that is, but this committee is doing that for good reasons. And I just want to make a note here about the continued issues with transparency. I know we're going to be meeting with Mr. Burnside for a workshop after this meeting. The hospital, a big complaint is they've not been transparent with us, and I hope that they will become transparent with us. I, on September 16th, took a list, y'all know this, I've said this over and over, a list of questions to Mr. Burnside's office, and we talked for about half an hour, and he promised me written answers, and I've never gotten those. Before we had our board meeting where he attended in November, I gave him a different version, a clearer version of those same questions, because the first version was just notes. And he said in front of all of you that he would give me written answers. He's never done that. December 19th, I sent an email formal request under the Public Information Act, attaching those questions and some more questions, and I asked for a response to make sure I sent it to the right person and that they'd received it. Nothing. I resent it December 19th, nothing. And December 21st, I finally sent it certified mail and sent an email version of my letter to Loretta Morgan and Brian Burnside. Loretta emailed me last week, early in the week, and said, we will get back with you in a couple of days to schedule a time for you to do this. I've never heard a thing. So transparency is a huge issue here. So I want to say that, and I don't know if anybody wants to talk about any of that or to move on to your next. Oh, I'm sorry. I do have a little bit more here that I kind of covered a little bit. But and I'm just going to read this. While we already have a viable, effective EMS system, during the first two meetings, we've all agreed to work together to identify opportunities for strategic sourcing of items and services. This says it better than I did, such as equipment and supplies, training and billing and collection services. And we're studying the protocols and looking at what type of changes might need to be made there, and working on plans to cover other providers' areas. And we're looking at funding through grants and ways to save money that make us more financially viable. And as we progress, I'll report to this committee for as long as this continues. And that is all I have to say about that for now.
Anybody got any questions?
If I may, I just want to ask one question, and I've asked you it before. Talking about all this is great, but have y'all talked about how you're going to fund it?
That's what we're looking into. That is an issue, but it's an issue we'll work toward.
But because we've met over the last 8 years, 10 years, 15 years, multiple times on working together, coming together, medic sharing, whatever else. It just never did really work out.
Right.
And I think now to be talking, it's great. Yes, we agree that we're going to order from a centralized location for supplies, save money there. We're going to save money on on some other things. We're going to use the same medical director, but ultimately, I mean, it's sort of putting our cart before the horse, because if we don't have the personnel to be able to provide the service, then where are we?
That's my deal.
The
only thing there is I agree, that's all good that you do that, but I mean, they don't have any personnel to need those supplies. You have to have the personnel to, and that's the thing, I think. I mean, that's nothing to do with us, but I think that's what the other people are calling to do. That's what they want, what we have. But then, I think they're going to have to own up to it. I mean, everybody's got to pay the piper.
And that's
And that's like you're talking about, finding the funding.
Right.
And it's not that we don't have an issue here. I mean, life moves on even if the hospital backs out.
Right.
I mean, we continue on with what we're doing here. There's no change. It's just
unless they've disbanded us, but go ahead.
They can't just.
They can't disband us.
I mean, if they take our personnel.
They can't.
They can't.
They can't.
They
take our
are, well, they, personnel,
Yeah.
that's anybody's
Yeah.
decision. They can leave today, they can leave
Right.
tomorrow. I mean, I can leave my job. You know,
David, I don't
that's,
know.
that's strictly up to the, you know, the person, individual.
The only way that this ESD would go away is first off, it has to be citizens that petitions it, and then the petition has to be presented to the board, and the board has to vote if it's in the best interest of the community to just dissolve this ESD.
But I know where you're coming
And I
from.
didn't mean to butt in.
Y'all I think y'all have the feeling that the hospital board is just trying to run over the top of everything and take it all, and they can't do that. Like I said, I'll never vote for anything where we give our equipment away.
It's beyond that now, it's beyond that.
It's
Yes,
not
that
for
those
us.
feelings are there, and this isn't for us, this isn't for us, this is because Larry Richardson and the board said we might go away if the Wellback election goes a certain way. We have
But it
no
won't,
option
it won't
but to
affect us at
come
all.
up.
No.
But we still need to have an alternative plan, and it can only good can
Our
come from
alternative
that.
plan is to stay as we are.
Is that good though? I mean.
It's great
then-
for us.
Then why are we trying to fix it? Why is the hospital, that is a question.
We're
we have.
doing
it's the other one, they don't have these
EMS
services.
service.
Trying to equalize,
Yeah.
it'd be the same, whether
And
you're in
that's what we're
Livonia.
looking at. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
but-
I keep butting in, go ahead.
But, again, I mean, this has been the problem since day one, whenever I was the director for Stockton.
Right.
It's the same reoccurring problem every single month, every single year. Money. If you got the money to have the staff, then we can talk about those other things. But if you don't have a funding source to be able to fund staff, then you don't have anything.
And we don't know that yet. We don't know what grants we are, we don't know.
Grants will
what-
not pay your staff. They're not, the state's not gonna give you $250,000 a
We
year
still
Per
will go
staff.
staff.
through- we still
That's
will
what
go
our,
through this
that's
process.
what it costs
Please
us.
understand, Carlos, we're not challenged, we didn't form this group to go against the hospital. We formed this group because we've tried to work with the hospital. The people on-
Everything you
But
have
wait.
there is exactly what the hospitals told you. We're
What?
gonna have personnel, we're gonna buy all of our medical medical drugs and other stuff through the hospital that'll be dispersed through their EMS service,
Oh, you mean
their
what we're doing?
personnel.
I know.
All of that is the same as the hospital. I don't know what y'all are fighting about.
I don't know what we're fighting about right now, because what I've tried to explain in the
I'm
beginning.
explaining to you
The
that
reason it's
the
written
number
like that.
one thing that y'all don't have on there is funding. That's the first thing you gotta
And I said
have.
in,
is
here,
funding.
we're looking into that. We have no option.
There's
If
two
we're gonna-
ways to
Carlos,
fund
let me
this.
finish, please. If we're gonna serve our taxpayers, and we've heard the hospital look at us and say, come up with your own plan, because we may go away, were we supposed to not do anything? Would you have it in?
I mean, as citizens, y'all can do whatever y'all
And
want.
then
I
that's
mean,
what I'm
I'm
saying.
covered.
So we're arguing for no reason.
Well, but-
I don't wanna argue with you about it, I'm just explaining, and I don't need to explain really, but why this group is formed. It's not because we're like, oh, we're gonna do this and we don't want the hospital to.
But this is
It's-
what it
here, let me
takes to
finish.
do.
But what has
Finances.
happened is we have asked and asked and asked, as you see, and Brian Burnside not answering my questions, for some assurance that this will work, and we don't have it. They won't answer questions. They won't, and this is a legal issue now. They are absolutely ignoring. I have the code where it says they need to answer promptly. And promptly, and they've not answered at all. And so this is the lack of transparency. It's hard to trust, and it's hard to trust what's going on, and we want to, and we've discussed this in this group. We've tried and tried and tried to get good information from the hospital. We got that two-sided preliminary budget and budget assumptions, and that's what the board said was their plan. That's what they said during the November 30th meeting more than once. That doesn't satisfy me, and it doesn't satisfy that group. And we probably wouldn't have come up with a group like this had it not been for the board saying, if the vote doesn't go right, we may go away. And I think it's a good thing they did, and I think this is a good exercise for us. And so that's, is there, any, David, I interrupted you twice. Did you say what you wanted to say? All right.
I done forgot what I was saying really, but
I mean, to me, the thing y'all are missing is the finance. Until you come up with a finance, it doesn't matter about anything.
We've had 2 meetings, and we're still working on that, and we realize fully that we may not be able to come up with it, but we're not just gonna sit by and wait for maybe nothing to happen. We're not gonna sit by, we have no, and as far as the letter of intent Brian might bring up today, we don't have enough information to sign anything. We don't have it.
Well, we're not
They won't
signing
disclose
anything,
it.
we're not doing anything.
Oh, I know.
All we're doing is discussing
I know
in
he
case something,
Right.
if they were, this way we're not caught at the end of the deal trying to figure out what we wanna do.
And I know he mentioned that last week, so that's why I'm just saying, if he brings it up, we don't know, we don't have enough information. I didn't mean to butt into you now, go ahead.
But, like I said, to me, there's only two, the reason this ESD, or any ESD, whether it's fire or EMS, was created is because that's the only way you can fund them. The hospital board, the only thing they've done is give the county citizens another way to fund the EMS. That's all they've done. And to me, paying, I mean, we can raise ours as high as 10 cents before we have to have a
There's
roll.
funding right there if the hospital went away, that's part of our funding, the taxes.
For us, for ESD three.
If we stay in existence.
Well, we're gonna stay in existence until we're petitioned to close down.
I mean,
And the
fully
citizens have to
functioning.
do that.
I mean, if the
And then that
hospital,
goes to an election.
I mean, if the
that's the
hospital
way-
doesn't come in and if we have to stay.
We don't do
existing.
nothing.
Right.
If the hospital doesn't come in, we don't do nothing. Our
Right.
meetings will probably be 10 minutes.
Right.
Well, we're back, all we're back
And then,
to our same
most
problem is getting our
likely,
funds.
And that's the other thing, I mean, I never saw it, I just heard it, the rumors and stuff, that before the hospital came in, that we were gonna be petitioned by the area of Livonia to take on that.
Right.
Now, why would those people wanna pay a 10 cents tax when they only have to pay a 3 cents tax? You know, I mean, it's just like this now. We stay in existence, we're gonna be paying what we pay now, or maybe more, depending on our collections. That's never, you never know at the end of the year what our collections are gonna be.
So if
And
the
that
hospital.
says what our tax rate is, we have to raise it, or can we lower it? It depends on our collections every year.
So if the
911
hospital
does not pay.
Right, so if the hospital doesn't take this over, and if we're left as we are.
They're not,
we-
but first off, they're never gonna take this over, never.
If the hospital doesn't take over the services, I don't mean ESDK, countywide services.
Well, even at that, we still have to sign a
Right,
contract.
so if they don't take it over and we remain functioning as we are, and we remain, and our tax rate stays the same, and so does the other ESD. And if we have a countywide system under this strategic planning group that we formed.
But no funds outside this district.
Why not the funds from this we would
No.
go on as we have before.
In this district, but
In
the
this
funds,
district.
the funds from this district have to stay in this district.
Right,
They can't go
right.
to Livonia, they can't.
Each district would keep being funded the
There's
way
only
they are
two,
now,
there's
and we
only
would have
two
cost
EMS
savings.
districts.
I know, but you have two areas that are not ESDs, that don't have any tax support or
Right.
any other funding revenues other than EMS billing. And we know 911 does not pay.
But they've existed, one for 43 years.
Yes, it's volunteer.
Right, and that's not the ideal situation, but I'm
I mean,
saying that if the hospital doesn't come in, that whatever monies we have so far that we've operated on still would be there.
Yes,
And we'll
nothing's gonna change.
Right, and we would capitalize on the strategic sourcing of equipment and supplies and training.
Our
and
equipment
grants.
can't go
Those are just
anywhere.
ideas, we haven't discussed that as a
Our
group.
equipment can't go anywhere.
Exactly.
It stays right here in this
Right,
district.
right. So I'm saying if we stay in operation, things would stay
We're
like
good.
they are. Right, we're good.
We're good.
Right.
It doesn't matter one way or the other, whether the hospital, we contract with the hospital, or the hospital moves forward or not, we're good.
Right.
The decision has to be made as to, are we going to move forward and contract with the hospital when that time comes to allow them to provide the service, and we sort of oversee it. That's what it would be. You're contracting with the hospital to oversee them provide the care or the service to this district. And the moment that you're not happy with that service that they're providing, if it took too long for an ambulance to get here, or they didn't have a paramedic on that ambulance that day, and it's within that contract that says that they will provide this service, then they're in breach of that contract. You void that contract, you hire medics back on the trucks, and you go right back to where you were.
Okay, and so that, operating like that, and we continue as a board, and ESD continues, D2 continues as a board. What about the people that aren't represented, that are just volunteer groups? Who represents their interests when the hospital?
Themselves, they've got
That's
to form a group
That's
to do
their,
it. I mean,
that's their,
that's their deal.
that's their issue. If they want a basic service, and they're happy with a basic service,
Right, you know.
that's great, you know? I mean,
I
that's the
said
way
it time
it
and time
stays.
again, it's who do you want to pick you up? You want somebody to pick you up and take you ride somewhere, you want somebody to pick you up, be able to run a line if you're having a heart attack or do something. But it's the same, it's like the guy that moved next to the hog farm when he come out of San Antonio. And 2 weeks later, he's petitioning because he wants to get rid of the hog farm for the smell. You can't move from some place that's got the funding for it to rural America and live in rural America and think you still got the funding here. We don't have what Bear County has. We don't have that tax basis. So all I'm worried about is us right here. That's all I'm mandated to worry about. If Lavernia wants to come in, if all the rest of them want that same thing, they've got to say, well, no, we're going to farm our own deal. I think think y'all are upset. The hospital's not mandated. They can't make us do anything.
It's not about, go ahead. That's what I'm saying.
It's just not. They can't make us do. They can't make us do anything we don't want to sign or do. I mean, they're not. The county. The county has nothing to do with it. The county can't come in here and say, hey, ESD3, y'all got to go with this hospital board and that's it.
Right.
They can't.
Right. And you use the word upset, and I don't know how to stress and make it clear. This group did not form because we're upset. We formed, and not that we aren't upset about some things, the lack of transparency and things. We formed because there may not be anything if the hospital is true to its word and goes away if the rollback election doesn't go their way. That's why this was formed, not because we're a bunch of upset people. We're doing what we think is best for the county, and we keep talking. If things go back to the way they are now, the funding would be, and the lack of funding would be as it is right now.
Right.
And all we can do is try to seek more funding, which, you know, this group, a good thing that's coming from this group is we're going to work together to try to figure that out. But it won't be any worse than it is now, which is good. I don't know what complaints people are hearing. I don't think they have. We have a good system. I know the viability, the financial viability is a big issue, and that's a thing we have to work on. And if it can't be worse than it is now, and it can only be better because we're working together finally, and we really are. We'll hit a couple of bumps, but we're doing it. And we will save money by having strategic sourcing of supplies and equipment. Working together, we're working on a plan where if all of ESD3's ambulances are away and a call comes in, if they're all away, they notify the other ESDs, and we have a unit ready on call for ESD3. We're covering each other's backs. We're working together that way, and I'm really proud of it. And if
Well, the trouble with sending those other units out there is you're not sending ESD3 units out there who have paramedics on them.
Not yet. That's what we're looking at. We have
you're just sending somebody to come pick you up.
We have
and we're mandated to not do that here.
Right.
We're mandated. Our people pay taxes to have paramedics on that truck to do it. If we don't have that, they just have to wait till we get there with it because they don't want to be picked up.
And if you want it, that's
by
fine. And
well,
we're not saying that would not
it's
be
not
the
me that
case.
wants it.
So
It's the people who voted this
so it's,
that way.
wait.
You never let anybody. No, ma'am.
You did.
I've never got to say anything yet that you haven't interrupted.
Go ahead.
I'm tired of
I'm
listening
sorry.
to
I'm
it.
sorry, you're right. I understand.
We're taking care of ESD3. We're not mandated by that hospital board. That hospital board they can complain and whine all they want to. It don't matter. What you're doing is fine. But the other part of it is we're not mandated to do what you say either. All we're worried about is our personnel and our trucks. And like I say, when it all comes down to it, we're not going to. I'm not going to ever vote to let go of nothing because I don't know if this hospital thing will work. I don't know that your thing will work. I haven't seen any plan from y'all yet, and I understand it takes a while to get something in plan. But apparently what y'all are mandated to do is report back to the hospital board, which has nothing to do with what I'm mandated to do, and that's to take care of people under our ESD3 area. And that's all we're going to do here. And, that's, y'all say you're not upset, but every time we say anything, it just goes to the end of it. I know you're upset, and that's fine to be upset. But we're not trying to hurt somebody, and I wished that it would work because I wish everybody in the county could have the same service we do. But it's not upon us to fund that for them. They've got to say, okay, all right, we'll pay the tax, we'll fund it. They have that opportunity just like the people in ESD3 did, and they've refused to take it. So you've got to help yourself. And the ESD3 people, not me, not this board, they've helped themselves. They said, we're willing to pay that tax because we want that paramedic on that truck. And that's the basic difference between the two that I've seen through the whole thing is who's going to pick me up. Is somebody gonna give me a ride to the hospital, or somebody gonna work on me while I'm going to the hospital? I want somebody working on me, because I don't know where they're gonna have to take me. You know, if I'm having a heart attack, they've got to go someplace, they can't go to Floresville. You know, that's not a heart care center, they've got to take me to a heart care center. And that's what I'm looking at, that's what the people of ESD3 are looking at. And I have no problem with you coming up with an alternate plan. But don't chunk rocks at somebody else who's come up with a plan. They came up with a plan. I don't say that you like it. He presented a plan to us. I don't say that's a perfect plan, but they did present a plan. Now, if you don't like that plan, and you know, they specifically told you to do that. And like I told you, I thought that was a good deal. But I mean, when I read in the paper that we're all meeting there and nobody's representing ESD3 in y'all's group, period. I mean, you're there, but you're not there as an ESD3 board member.
Neither.
And that's why I don't like to see that represented. I get calls all day. Well, this, that, and the other. I've talked to my cousin. Well, it costs this and it costs that. Well, it costs that in San Antonio. It don't cost that right here. It doesn't cost $1 million a year to run an ambulance in Wilson County. If it did, we'd need $3 million every year to run this ESD3 right here, and it don't happen. Now, like I say, my big deal is getting the funding. If you want to get the funding, write your representative, repeal and repair Obamacare. We talked to the lady that told us, you know, when they got a $3,600 deductible, we're just not getting the funding in. That's where I see the problem is. Now the hospital, you know, they're, like I say, I'm not assured that they're going to be able to make this fly. But I do know this: they're not going to, you know. I'll help them if that's the way everybody wants to do it, but I will not vote to turn over our ambulance and everything. The personnel will have to make their own decision. But as far as I'm saying, we go forward still owning our equipment. If they want to use it, that's good.
That's a great idea.
But they pay for upkeep, repair, and what we owe on it. But now, and I think you need to look at it that this don't have to happen next week. I mean, and it's not going to happen next week. And it comes in October, and I know, as everything else, October gets here quicker than you think. But I think the other deal is, you're gonna get a mandate from the people with the rollback. Because I guarantee if that rollback goes through, I'll bet you the hospital pulls out.
And then they're right back to where they were before.
Yeah, right back where they were before, and we are too. Which, we're not in a perfect spot, but we're in such a much better spot than the rest of this county. But that's their deal. That's not my deal. You know, unless they want to mandate, you know, we take in the whole county, which I can't imagine it's done. But that's, we kept hearing we're going to do this, going to do that, but we never see all this stuff. But the main thing is you don't have to convince me that it's problematic. It is. It's always been. I mean, when you have more money out than you take more money in, it's problematic. It is. But like I always say, we're providing a service. When we show up, no one's there with a checkbook or credit card. And that's a tough way to live when you're providing a service. And especially when you're in a poor county. When your tax basis is homeowners. It's tough. Now I'm through.
Okay, because there were so many times I wanted, the reasons I was thinking the reasons I interrupted and it was not right for me to do that is I'm having trouble getting the point across that this wasn't formed. There are some upset people there. This group wasn't formed because we're upset. And the group and I can't even read my notes. There were so many things I wanted to say while you were saying that. And well, your points are well taken. That this group is together. It's together and we're going forward. It's not to challenge the hospital. And I don't want to keep saying it. I've said it over and over. And I don't think I'm making you understand what I'm trying to say. But
I think you're more upset with Burnside than you are anything. Is that not correct?
No, what I'm upset with is the hospital's lack of transparency. They won't tell us a thing. We don't know what we're saying. As I've said from the very beginning, we don't know what we're saying yes or no to because the hospital won't tell us. They won't tell us if our groups are going to stay where they are. They won't tell us about the ambulances. They either don't have an idea, but they're going to do it by October. Whatever this is, they're doing it by October. After this August 18th letter saying it was going to be phased in, it was going to take years, blah, blah, blah. Now it's going to all be done in October. we can't trust what the hospital's telling us, well, because they're not telling us anything. How can we put our eggs in that basket when we have no idea the hospital's not forthcoming about it?
Like I told you, I think you'll see more answers.